guys, in today's video I'm going to be filming the ultimate guide to studying. Finals are coming up, so I feel like it's the perfect time to evaluate how you're studying and make sure you're putting all the chances on your side to succeed during exam season. So I'm basically just going to give you guys my top tips and show you my favorite study supplies, and hopefully it'll help you guys to have a better study routine. Let's get started. The first thing you want to do before anything is to identify what's stopping you or what's distracting you from becoming the best student possible, or just from having the best results possible. Usually that's going to be distractions, so it can be your phone, just environmental distractions. For example, if you live in a dorm room and there's a lot of noise outside, or if you live at home with your family and you have younger siblings, and it could just be people in general. So you want to make sure you're studying in the place that has the least distractions possible for you, because I know for me personally sometimes my phone can be distracting, but it's never too much of a problem. And I'm also pretty used to studying with a lot of people around, so for me personally what's distracting if I'm not comfortable in my environment. So like I want to have comfy clothes on and just kind of set the vibe before I start studying. But you definitely want to identify that before doing anything, because even if you follow every single one of these tips, as long as you're distracted, your study sessions aren't going to be as productive and efficient as possible. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do. So we're going to move on to my favorite study tips, and then we'll finish off with my favorite study supplies. The first tip or just thing to keep in mind is that the ways to study are going to be different for different subjects. So you want to make sure you adapt your way of studying to each subject or each type of subject. For example, for math, it's going to be a lot of practice questions. Like physics, chemistry, like those three subjects are pretty similar in the way you're going to want to study. But then for subjects like biology, you're going to want to learn everything pretty much by heart, but also understand the concept. So that's another way of studying. So although they're both science subjects, they are very different in the way you're going to want to approach your way of studying. So for example, for me, for biology, I like to make cue cards and just pretty much learn everything by heart. But for physics, I like to do a lot of practice questions and redo the ones that I've had difficulty with. My next study tip is to change your environment often, or as often as possible. This is ideal when you live on campus, because there's so many places to study and just explore the campus, find new places to study. When I lived on campus, when I went to school in Colorado, whenever I was sick of studying in one place, there's so many other places to study. But if you're living at home, it can be just studying in your bedroom and then going in the living room or the kitchen. It can be going to cafes, libraries, kind of anything. It's just a bit less practical because you have to drive whenever you want to change your environment, but it is worth it because it kind of resets your mind a little bit and helps with motivation for me personally. The next tip is to reward yourself. You kind of want to make your study sessions as exciting as possible. So for example, when you're going to a cafe, getting like a Danish or some sort of like croissant or something, I feel like they're great little rewards for yourself. If you have the financial means to like buy a little something, then I would suggest doing that. I see a lot of people on TikTok have like full like documents on rewards for themselves. So if that is something that you're interested in, I would definitely look it up on TikTok. It's important to take breaks, because sometimes even if you think you're good to keep studying for like 3 hours, your brain just kind of needs a little 15-minute reset, and you'll learn this stuff a lot easier taking a 15-minute break than spending 3 more hours studying that thing. I feel like that's especially true for me when I'm studying subjects where I have to learn and absorb a lot of material, or even when I do practice questions for physics and stuff like that. I feel like you can be frustrated whenever you don't get a number or you just don't understand how to solve that problem. Taking breaks is literally magical. Just a 15-minute break, scroll on TikTok, kind of do things that don't require a lot of brain power, and it will help to have that little reset. The next tip is to have clear tasks. So for example, if you have to study for a biology exam, you don't want to write on your to-do list to study for the biology exam, because that could mean so many things. You don't really know when you're done studying for an exam like that. What I suggest to do is make a study schedule with tasks to do on each day, so that it is a lot clearer what you have to accomplish that day to study for your exam, without doubting if you've done enough studying for that day in order to succeed for that exam. exam because you have that plan and you know that the next day you're going to do this much studying and then the day after, etc. So that's something I really recommend doing if you're not doing already. It just really helps to know when you're done with something instead of just studying until you don't feel like it anymore, which also kind of ties into the next step, which is to work smart, not necessarily work hard. So for example, if you're studying for an exam but you don't really have a clear idea of what you're studying, you're just kind of learning stuff, and you do that for like 3 days straight, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do better than someone that has a clear idea of what they study and study for 3 hours, because that person made a clear plan and knew what they needed to learn in order to succeed. This just prevents you from basically wasting your time, and a lot of teachers give guides of what's on the exam, so it's basically already done for you. You basically just have to follow it. And the last tip is to learn to manage your time. I've made a whole video on how I manage my time and how I personally do things and other ideas of how you can manage your time, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, but if you guys want to go watch that video and learn more about time management, then I suggest you do that after this video. Now we're going to move on to my favorite study supplies. I feel like having cute and fun study supplies can help with just motivation in general. I'm just going to show you my favorite things that I use. All-time favorite pens are these ones. They're from Amazon. I don't know what the name of these are, and they're the 0.35 millimeters, and I love these pens. I feel like they write so smooth. These are like my top favorite pens. I love the eyeliner highlighters. A lot of people have those, but they work really well. I like these because they have the fine tip and then they also have the regular highlighter part. So those are my favorite highlighters. I have them in probably every single color that they sell, but I also really like these Stabilo Boss ones because they are a bit larger of a highlighter. I don't use them as often. They are really nice. If you're not a fan of the eyeliner ones, I would suggest these. They have these, but they also have a smaller version of them where it's not as thick. My next essential for studying is my iPad. I use my iPad, especially GoodNotes, on there a lot with my Apple Pencil. I've kind of used this every single time. You can obviously kind of substitute that for just a notebook and paper if you don't have an iPad or if you don't want to buy an iPad, but if you do have one, I would suggest downloading GoodNotes. Notability is also really good. Next, I would suggest some good noise canceling headphones. I've never really needed to wear headphones to study until probably college, or at least like when I moved into the campus at Colorado State. Noise canceling has literally saved my grades. I feel like these just help me kind of be even more focused on my things than not having headphones. I use the Apple ones, but I think Sony has really good ones. Beats have really good ones as well, but yeah, I would suggest doing your research and looking into some noise canceling headphones because they will save your life when you're in the distracting environment, or if you're studying at a cafe or the library sometimes can even be noisy. So, and then the next thing I would suggest is some to-do list pads or notebooks or a planner of some sort, just something to write your to-do list in. I use these pads from the brand Poppin. I got those at Staples, but you can just use a regular notebook that you get from Target or Walmart or Amazon. And I kind of like to make my to-do list physical instead of having them on my phone. I just feel like it's a lot more fun to cross off the things that you've done on paper. So that is my ultimate guide to studying and kind of all the tips that I personally follow to get the best grade possible and to get the best results out of my studying sessions. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below your favorite study tip and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.